Hey guys, welcome back. We are back from vacation, and last night we got in about 10:30. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't wait to come out here and start playing around, seeing what we got, seeing all the beautiful work that Domino did for us. And I want to let you guys kind of get a sneak peek as to what we've got and what I did last night. Don't worry, it's nothing that everything that I did last night is nothing that anybody couldn't figure out on their own. So I'll kind of turn the light on, we'll unveil it, and unveil what we've got so far. And then I'll kind of walk you through what I did last night till 3 in the morning. But before we do that, I ran up to the hardware store because I needed a bunch of bolts, and some of the bolts for these tractors are kind of, even though they're a very common size, either the thread length on the bolt or the actual length of the bolt itself is kind of odd. So I'm going to have to go to Farmall or McMaster Car or something like that, Granger's, and order a number of bolts because some of them just aren't going to work for what we need. You know, the ones out of a big box store right off the shelf. So that's all I got to say about bolts. So let's turn the light on. I don't know if you guys will be able to see anything through the plastic or not. Probably not. But we'll go ahead and swim you through the plastic. So last night, the lighting isn't very good in here, but I'm also not going to open the door because it's raining outside, plus the plastic isn't going to allow as much light in as we need. But basically what I did was I took everything off the sawhorses, off the engine hoist. I took everything that was hanging on ratchet straps from the ceiling down, and I've got everything on the floor. The front pedestal looks great, or I should say the bolster looks great. Frame rails look great. I mean, the entire thing looks great, but I just went through and removed some masking. I had the governor to carburetor connection tube masked off. I did have the serial number tag masked off. I'm kind of test fitting pieces right now. That's why a lot of these bolts are in loosely. Lift all pump looks great. I laid the gasket down out of the box for the belt pulley assembly. I reinstalled all of the bolts in the top deck cover, so you can see they're all grade 8 natural yellow hardware. And crap, I forgot to get bolts for that too. Well, I'll have to do that. I also removed all of the axle bolts, the axle housing bolts, except the top and bottom ones, so that when I put it back together, you know, these would all be your natural grade 8 hardware color. And then after I got the ones that I removed in, I removed the 2 that I had to leave in during the painting process and soaked them in some paint thinner to remove the paint that was on them. I set the wheel centers on the axles. We're going to have to do some touch up on these. I think part of the difficult part was everything was so tight in here that there's just a couple areas that Domino wasn't able to get to. In here, we'll have to hand apply some paint in this area. So, not a huge deal. That's to be expected when you're working in a tight environment like this. So we'll go through everything and get it all touched up where it needs to be touched up. Kind of give you guys a little look at the PTO assembly. I did leave the shaft natural, so I should say bare. There's no paint or primer on the PTO shaft. And what I'm going to do to protect this from rusting is I'm just going to lather it up with a thick layer of grease. So that's the plan on that. One thing I did notice when I was looking through some of my photos was the governor connection bracket that mounts to the top of the cylinder head was actually on backwards. So I took that off, and I noticed that we didn't get a whole lot of primer and paint on the inside of it, so I flipped it around, and we're going to mask off this area and just hit it with a quick burst of rattle can primer. And I installed the fan belt and alternator belt. The alternator belt has to go on first because it's on the inside, and the fan belt you want about 3/4 of an inch or so to an inch of play. So, and the only way that you can adjust it is to turn this adjusting collar in or out, and that adjusts the actual pinch on the V portion of the belt. So, you know, the further you tighten it, the higher up it brings the belt in the pulley, which tightens the belt on the assembly. The further out you thread it, the lower in the V of the pulley it rides, therefore the looser the belt is. So that's kind of where we're at. Oh yeah, we've got the front pedestal here. The wheel rim clamps are sitting over here on the workbench, along with our manifold studs. And today, what I'll probably do, because one of my faux pas that I did prior to leaving and having everything set up for Domino was I never had the front engine mount blocks, which go inside the frame rail here between the frame rail and the engine block. I never had them outside, so Domino didn't know that we had to paint them. So what I'm going to do, because they're not really a visible item, I'm going to rattle can prime and paint them. Not ideal, but it'll be just fine because it's inside the frame rail. You won't even see them, so not a big deal. So we'll do that today. Probably get the belt pulley mounted up quick. And then I also wanted to get the brake drum covers and that on, and the brake bands and actuating levers and all that is going to have to be installed in the covers prior to putting them on. So belt pulley, brake bands and covers, front engine block or front engine mount blocks, and I don't think we're going to get the front bolster in the frame rails. Maybe, but don't count your chickens. Maybe, but I may end up pulling the rear wheel centers off because I think we should paint these axles black. I think it'll just add a nice accent to them. So we'll just use rattle can black to paint those. But you know, I had intentions on getting a lot further, but having to order those bolts for the wheel rim clamps on the rear wheels and a couple other things, we really can't. I mean, everything's going to be closed. Tomorrow's Memorial Day, so, and they're not open today, all the specialty bolt shops. So it is what it is. We're just going to have to go up Tuesday and order some bolts and go from there. So yeah, let's get some things set up and we'll I think we'll start with the priming and the painting of the engine block mount blocks, so that way they can dry while we're working on other stuff. But we'll probably do that, then we'll move on to the belt pulley quick, get that mounted up, and go from there. So stay tuned. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and put the belt pulley in place. Now once again, I did take my oil can and oil liberally inside here, so I'm trying not to dump any oil out everywhere. Just trying to see here where these bolts are going to go. Oops, that's not what we wanted to do. Now these two long bolts up front here, these two long ones, they get a copper washer underneath them because they go down into the housing, so there's going to be a lot of splash in there, and that copper washer will help them seal. Now, let's see here. These two longer or mid-length bolts go in the side, and the two short bolts go in the rear. Just like that. So I should have some grade 8 hardware for this. I'm going to check. These long ones are a custom length bolt, so I'm just going to reuse the original bolts for that. But so far it's looking good. Okay guys, we got the belt pulley on and tightened down. I did not have any grade 8 hardware for that, so that is yet another thing that I'm going to have to pick up later, and I'll just replace the bolts one at a time when we get the hardware. But I figured, what the heck, let's get a piece of chrome mounted up and ready to go. What we're going to do is work on the shift lever. Originally this setup had the shift lever itself, the shift lever cover, or I guess you could call it the dust boot cover, and then there's a washer that goes on top of the cover like so, then a spring, and last is the spring retainer, which is usually held in place by either a roll pin or a cotter pin, and that goes on top like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinvent the shifter spring retainer, and I picked up this collar that has a threaded set screw on one side, and then I drilled and tapped the other side, so it's got two threaded set screws, and I'm going to use that as the retainer. I may have to use a little bit of a Dremel to get it to work, because it's just a little bit too big. My guess is the chrome plating is what's holding it up. Yeah, so I'll probably have to take a Dremel and well, maybe, hold on, let's remove the set screws completely and just see. Maybe they're hanging up on the set screws. Well, I'm gonna have to do some filing inside here. I can feel the burrs from when I tapped it, but yeah, I think that's what it's catching up on. So hold tight while I get the file out and file inside here, get rid of that burr, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So we'll put the, whoop, I keep dropping stuff left and right here. We'll put the washer on, the spring, and the collar. And the idea is the collar puts tension on this spring. Get our set screws installed. Flip it over. Make sure the other side lines up. Now this is the first time that I've actually put this together, so I'm hoping everything works. So far, so good. Just like that. So that's the top half. Now the bottom half you cannot assemble. Well, I should take that back. This this actually needs to come back apart to put the cross pin in that goes through the actual shift lever. So basically this cross pin goes into this large hole and sits like this with the hole crossways like this. Okay? So when you get that cross pin in, what you have to do is push the lever. You see it's spring loaded. Push the lever down into the transmission top, and then you slide your retainer pin into place. And that goes through the larger pin that goes in the shift lever. So let me let me loosen this. Again, this is trial and error. I've only done this one time, and that was taking it apart. So we're doing pretty good so far, though. We'll get this collar off, and for the sake of saving battery, well, it'll be off momentarily, so. Biggest thing is I don't want to scratch this this top cover. Okay, so we'll put in the here. I'll do it so you can see it. So this large pin goes into the large hole on the lever, and just to keep everything in place, I'm going to install that cross pin while I put the retainer in, the spring retainer on with the set screws. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Hope so. So there's one set screw. Oh, and our cross pin fell out. That's okay, because the cup, the shift lever cup, will keep the larger pin in place. So there's that. Just snug it up. Now we can go over to the transmission, lower the fork or the shift lever down in. We'll grab our hole plugs, 2 hole plugs, and the shift lever cross pin. Now this cross pin comes as a kit from Steiner. It's part number IHS981. So you can get that part brand new from Steiner if you have a worn pin, and replace it with a brand new one. So let's get over to the tractor. Okay guys, we are ready to install the shifter. Now again, when you look down inside here, those shifting rails have notches in them, big notches. And you probably can't see it real well, but right where my finger ends, straight across, there's notches in that area, and you want all of those to be aligned. There's 3 of them before you put this in. That way you know that the tractor's in neutral. So, see if I can find a good spot to put the camera. Now the goal is to set that hole in that large pin exactly where it needs to be so that you can get your cross pin installed. And then, oh, we can take these bolts out of here. These are extra, we don't need these. We might need them somewhere else, but then we put in our drill plugs, or I should say expansion plugs. And once we get them in place, we can just hit them in the center with a punch, and that'll expand them out and keep them from falling out. So that's all there is to it. You know, we'll get these plugs in place and then hit them with a punch to expand them and go from there. Okay guys, we got both hole plugs in place, one on this side, one on the other side, and our shift lever, chrome shift lever, is in place. I also quickly installed the linkage that goes from the governor up to the throttle linkage arm. This is also chrome, so you probably can't see it real well in the shadow here, but that's 2 pieces of chrome mounted on the tractor, ready to go. And it shifts through all the gears nicely, which is awesome. So that means everything's working, which is a bonus. But now let's move on to the brakes. We'll get the brake bands installed in the covers, and then we'll install the covers on the drums themselves. And that's probably going to be about all I can do until we get more bolts. I think I could install the manifold if I wanted to. So, but next we'll go to the brakes, and then we'll do the manifold, and then it's time to go get new bolts. So, again. Okay, now let me point my microphone. In order to install the brake band in the cover, we first have to insert the actuating lever and the pin into one end, and then sometimes when these things are nice and clean, they tend to fall apart easily. So we got both our pins in. I'll kind of show it here so you guys can see what's going on. So there's a pin here and a pin here, and they go through each looped end of the brake band. And from there, I'm just going to take a little bit of grease and put it on the end of the shaft that goes through the cover, because there's a bushing in here. It doesn't hurt to be a little liberal with it. Just like so. Get rid of the excess on my fingers. And then it's just a matter of, you may have to twist this in order to get the brake band to fit properly. Whoop, see, we're already losing pins. Already losing pins. like so. And then just push it into place. Should look something like this when it comes through the other side. So our brake band is in place. And then when it comes through the other side, the keyway should be facing forward. Now there are some small felts that go in here. I'm going to reuse the old ones. I don't really have any felt material to use, and these ones aren't in too bad a shape. They're just a little dirty. So put our key in the keyway. And this one is ready to go on the tractor. So we can move on to the next one. Alright guys, first things first, this hole right here, this large hole, you probably can't see it from where the camera is. This large hole, there's a bushing in there, so make sure you grease that liberally before reinstalling this cover. And then it's just a matter of sliding it on and putting your bolts in place. Now some of these are a challenge to get to just because they're in a tight space, so something to keep in mind, especially this one up top. I actually forgot to take that one out when I was pulling the cover, if you guys recall, back in the video where we removed the transmission top cover, and it was hanging on for dear life. So there we go. Not easy to get some of these in, but with a little patience you'll get them. Anyways, this camera needs to be plugged in, so let me charge it, and then we'll move on to the next task, which should be probably manifold installation. Okay? Well guys, as you can see, we're back inside, and I think we're going to wrap up the video here. We got some severe weather coming, and I haven't cut the grass yet this year, and it needs to be cut, as I like to refer to it, cutting the hay. For this video, we basically covered shift lever installation and how to assemble your brake bands in the cover and install the cover on the drum. So next on the list, we'll probably get the manifold on, and I did pick up some more bolts after I picked up groceries here this afternoon, so we should be able to get the frame rails and the front pedestal and bolster on. And then I got a call from Mark over at New Image Coatings, and our rims are ready for pickup, so we will be able to pick those rims up this week, get the tires installed, and then hopefully we'll have a roller by next weekend. I don't know, we gotta get the bolts for the rear wheel to rim clamps, and a few other nuts and bolts that I have to get from the specialty shop before it's ready to get it back on the ground. But that's all there is for this one. So huge thanks to Domino for coming over and painting and priming this tractor. His wife is due, I believe, tomorrow, but she's scheduled to go in for C-section the day after, I believe. So the day after Memorial Day, they should have a fourth little one. This one's going to be a little boy, so congratulations, early congratulations to Domino. Big thank you to him and his wife for letting him come over while she's 9 months pregnant and paint this thing and get it ready to get back on the ground. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for wrenching with me, and stay tuned for the next video, guys. Don't forget to check out the GoFundMe in the link below. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.